Hello! Welcome back to the channel. Not many people in the world know this, but I'm a photographer by profession.
Wow.
I thought I'd take this opportunity to share some of my basic photography knowledge for my YouTube channel, as well as for the students and hobbies who often ask these questions at my work, so that they can refer to these videos as a quick tutorial. Today, we'll be learning how to use the Pentax K1000 35mm SLR film camera. This camera is widely regarded as the first camera, the beginner's camera, or the student camera. And there's a good reason for that. The Pentax K1000 is a great camera to learn the fundamentals of photography, mainly because it has all the basic controls that you need for basic photography, but nothing else. It is a purely mechanical camera, meaning that you can shoot photographs with this camera without a battery. There is, however, a battery that goes under right here, solely to use the built-in light meter. It is a manual camera, so you would have to learn the basics of shutter speed, ISO, aperture, and other basics of photography to use the camera. You won't understand how a photograph is made nowadays by using an iPhone or a DSLR because it does everything for you basically. But this camera will teach you how a photograph becomes a photograph. I do also want to mention this type of camera is called an SLR, or single lens reflex. Most common 35 film cameras you will encounter in the wild are SLRs, with the exception of several rangefinders. Meaning if you learn how to use this camera, chances are you will have an ease using most other 35 film cameras. Let's start with the battery. As previously mentioned, you do not need a battery to operate the camera, but if the light meter doesn't work on your camera, chances are the battery is dead. On the bottom of the camera, you can see the cap that hides the battery chamber. You can simply open this using a coin by twisting the cap counterclockwise. There you go. Pentax recommends a 1.5 volt LR44 alkaline battery or a SR44 silver oxide battery or an equivalent. Make sure the positive sign on the battery, which is this side, as you can see here, is facing outward, as that is the correct alignment for the battery. As you can see, on the cap there's actually a plus sign as well, so make sure these are properly aligned. There you go. So, I will make a separate video on loading a 35mm film canister to a camera, as it is by far the most commonly asked question. But one thing you have to keep in mind before loading the film is the film ISO, or the film speed. You need to know this so that you can set it to the right ISO on your camera settings. So, in case you don't know where the ISO is on your film, you can easily see it on the packaging of your film. This is obviously 400. Make sure you also know the film count as well, 36, that's pretty important. 400. If you look at films like this is a Portra, which is pretty common. Portra 160, that means the ISO is actually 160. If you look at this one, Fuji color, it's 24 shots and 200 ISO. So make sure you know what the ISO is before you put the film in. Changing the ISO is very easy because Pentax K1000 is an older camera that has been in production since 1976. Sometimes it's written as ASA, as you can see here, instead of ISO. So don't freak out if you don't see it. So this little number over here indicates the ISO the camera is currently set as. You want to change this so that it is the same number as the film you just loaded. You simply lift the outer ring of the dial and adjust it to your desire. So this actually, you could lift it up and change the ISO just like that. So if my film is 200, I want to set it there. If my film is, for instance, 800, you want to put it over here. Setting this is very important because this will determine the light meter reading on your camera, because every different ISO has a different light meter reading. To change the shutter speed, you simply rotate this dial on your camera, just like this. Very easy. So 1000 indicates it will shoot at 1,000th of a second, and if you put it on 60, for instance, it will indicate that it will shoot at 1/60th of a second. If you put it on 1, I'm sure you figured this out by now. It means that it will take 1 full second, and so on. B is a little different. B is an abbreviation for bulb, meaning the shutter will stay open as long as you press and hold the button, the shutter button. Let me show you what that means. So let's go back to 1,000th of a second. So it's pretty quick, obviously. If you go to 60, it'll be tad slower. And if you go to 1, it'll take a whole second. There you go. And if you put it on bulb, it won't close as long as I have the button held down. So like that. Or, you know, you get the point. The aperture ring is usually on the lens itself, as you can see here. The smaller number means it will have a large aperture opening, and the larger number will indicate a small aperture opening. So if you put it on 2, this is a 50 f2. So meaning it can go down to all the way down to f2. So if you go down to f2, it will actually have, despite the smaller number, it will actually have a wider aperture, meaning it will take in more light. If you put it on f22, it's a complete opposite. While the number is actually bigger, the radius of the aperture ring will be smaller when you're shooting, so you have less light coming in. So if this confuses you, congratulations, you're a beginner. How exciting is it to learn something new? Go take a class or go buy a book on photography or Google. But point being, the aperture ring is on the lens and you can easily set to the aperture of your desire. Simply rotate this ring on your lens until the image in your viewfinder is focused and sharp. So when you look through the viewfinder, you will notice there is a needle on the right with plus and minus signs, kind of like a gas meter in a car. If the needle is closer to the plus, it means it's overexposed. If the needle points towards minus, it means the image is underexposed. Your goal is to change the aperture and shutter speed so that the needle will be right in the middle, meaning it's properly exposed. Fun, right? This part will coincide with how to load film video, but basically you will want to advance the film by winding the winder. Simple as that. Notice there is a red indication whenever it is advanced. See how it turns red? See, it's gone now, but if you advance it, the red indicator pops out again. So be mindful of that, and keep in mind that the dial on the left should be moving along with the winder. If not, the film isn't properly loaded. So obviously I don't have film in here right now, but when you wind this, the left should also follow along by moving, I believe, half of the dial. The number on the winder indicates how many shots you've shot on your film. 35 film cartridges usually come in 24 or 36 shots, So once it reaches that number, you won't be able to advance anymore. And as I shown you previously, each of the film does show you how many shots it has. So this has 36 shots. From here, you can unlock the film by pressing the button on the bottom. So this button. Then simply wind the lever in the direction of the arrow to put the film back in the canister, so it'll be ready for developing. So you can see the arrow here, and wind till it finishes putting back the film inside the canister. In order to pop the back lid out, simply lift this dial upward and the back will pop out. And this applies to most SLRs. Like that. If you lift it even further, pops out like this, and you'll be retrieving your film this way. So once again, you dial this dial, wind this dial till it reaches the end towards the arrow direction, and you pop it out and take the film out. And make sure you unlock the canister on this side, not the canister, but the film on this side by pressing this button after you're finished. While pushing this button, simply rotate the lens counterclockwise. There you go, voila. To attach the lens back, simply align the red dots. The red dot is also on the lens, as you can see here. Align them and twist clockwise until it clicks. There you go. That pretty much sums up everything you need to know to go out and shoot. I didn't cover things such as the sync cord and the hot shoe, but the fun of photography comes from discovering things yourself, and you honestly don't need to know them when you're first starting off. If you have any questions, feel free to comment below, and happy shooting! Bye!